on Fire, and my name's Elizabeth Farah. So, what is the nightmare scenario of Kamala's America? Well, I'm going to some very smart people to tell me that. Today, I'm asking that question of Xi Van Fleet. She grew up during Mao's Cultural Revolution, which is amazing. And she survived, obviously, in China. So when this is the time when Chinese history, culture, family, institutions, and society was burned to the ground and replaced with Mao's socialist vision. So when she saw the same things happening in America, she decided to get involved. That was very, very brave. And then write a book, a warning to us. So thank you so much for joining me, Ji. And I would love to, before we hear your story or anything like that, I'd like to go straight to the point. What is your biggest concern? What do you see happening? Then what I call the nightmare scenario if Kamala Harris were installed as president in January of 2025.
Very simple. We will lose America as we know it and replaced by a totalitarian regime. And it may not look like CCP's China initially, but everything that happened in China will eventually happen here. And we will, I hope, talk in detail. So it's not, it, when she was installed in power, we will continue to see election, and we possibly will even see Republican wins here and there. But what really is a uniparty. And so it is everything will be controlled by a few people. We don't know who they are. We know some of them, but they are the elites or the globalists. We as people will be, we the people will be replaced by we the government, just like in China.
Well, in America today, we have all of these sort of protections that are set up, preventing us from easily believing what you're saying. That scenario, the nightmare
Mhm.
scenario. And one of them is that that sounds like a conspiracy theory. And my question to you is way back um, during the revolution, which spanned more than the Cultural Revolution. I mean, I'm sure we could look
Yeah.
at it going back further than that, little steps at a time, sometimes bigger steps. In today's society, if we were to go back there, would people be saying to those who would warn them, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory, but in Chinese, in a different language, in a different maybe words that they would use, but they would say that can't happen here.
Yeah, that is actually unique American or unique in Western countries.
Hmm.
And so it's not quite the same in China. And in China, they absolutely embrace communism. And the year that the CCP took over China was in 1949. That year, CCP enjoyed overwhelming support from the Chinese people, and that includes my own parents. Both of them joined the revolution in 1949. They absolutely believe that communism and socialism will bring Chinese people a better life. And you can kind of excuse them because they did not know any better. They did not know what really was going on in Soviet Union, and they believed that lie. But here it's a kind of a different scenario. Most people, educated people, have some idea what communism is about, what what happened in history. Somewhat, they just don't think it will happen here.
Right. It's sort of a pathology of delusion. I call it, like I said, it can't happen hereism. It
Yes,
just, well, not, this is America. That,
yeah,
that can't happen in America. And
uh-huh.
so, um, it seems to me that it's going to be your parents. And China at that time, the population embraced it because they didn't really know what it was. But
Yeah.
our America would, many people in our America would embrace it because, well, they don't know either because they don't
Yes, that's
teach
true.
about socialism in schools, right?
It's the young people. The young people have no understanding whatsoever about communism. They were ignorant of all the atrocities, crime that committed by the communists. Basically, up to 100 million people lost their lives under communism. So that's one category. But the older people, they have some idea. People that who went through Cold War and people who fought in Vietnam, they have some idea, but they just refuse to believe that might happen here. And I am one of them. One of
Mm.
them. So just let you know, because when I escaped communism and come to this country, I absolutely believe that I escaped communism. I left communism behind me. I'm here in America, the greatest country, the freest country in the world. What can go wrong? But here I am. I saw communism coming to America. I saw the cultural revolution that I experienced in China taking place right here in America. So I'm telling everybody, your audience, it is here because I saw both and I lived through one. I'm living through one right now here.
Do you think, well, not none of us know whether she will actually be installed or take the Oval Office because there's too many variables, the time is too short. But we can look further down the road and start with, if she were put into power with Tim Walz, what what would maybe her first day in America? We are always talking about, well, the first 100 days in office. I don't know why, because we go, okay, it's just an arbitrary thing, but first 100 days. And then if you could take us, where would we be? What will it look like if she has 4 years to pretty much put into place her ideology?
Yeah, I have to say this first before we go on talking about the issue you raised. I think this is the only election that is really crucial. If if we lose, that's it.
Mm.
But if the left loses, they're going to have 100 more times to come back and get power. But for us, this is it. So people need to understand there's no next election. Why? Now we talk about what the question you raised. They will make sure there will be no more real free election in America. Like they can do many things. One of the things they will do, one of the first thing they will do is they're going to pack the court. Why they attack the Supreme Court so much? And on the Twitter, that's pretty much I live. And nowadays,
Exactly.
they attack the Supreme Court so much. Why? They don't own it. That's the
Mm.
reason. So they own the executive branch because they have the deep state that is
Mhm.
always there, that really controls everything. And Congress, yes, they pretty much, even
Because
though
you have the uniparty. That's what you said before.
yes,
Because of
that
the
is the
uniparty.
key. Yes. So
And
they're
and
going to
by
make
the way,
sure.
they may just a slight diversion here. I would think that the reason this is an existential issue for them is Donald Trump. And not to go off too far in that direction, but how many elections were they ever faced with a candidate who was actually going to burn the deep state to the ground,
Yes.
clear out the swamp and make it a beautiful lake, blue lake. And so the opposition now is there, whereas before, for many, many decades, it's really just been the uniparty with one version of the
Of
same deep
another,
state.
exactly.
Okay, so this is why it's
This is
existential for
important.
them. But
Yeah.
if they don't win, they just keep going back because it's easy when you're trying to destroy something. It is so
Mhm.
much, I think, easier than to
Mhm.
resist the destruction. Am I right about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, absolutely. So that's what I mean. If they win, that's it. If we win, we have to fight them basically forever.
Yes.
Basically forever. Yeah, because they were never going to give up. They're going to keep attacking. But just like we just discussed, the first, I think among the very first thing they do is um, take over the Supreme Court one way or the other. And then they're going to have total control of the government. And they're going to have uniparty. Uniparty. We are going to see some, they still claim themselves Republican, like Nikki Haley, but we people, yeah, we the people will no longer have any power. And we, the government, will take over. So that's, I think, it's the number one thing to do. And then they will absolutely use lawfare, go after everybody, including you and me.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
You
They
can
will
come to my
find
house. If they
whatever.
come after you, come to my house. We'll board up the
They
windows.
will. I'm telling you, if that will happen, not just Donald Trump, and it's every their opponents, start from the high and all the way down. And you and I, yeah. And
It's
and then
understandable why people fear this because if you think the reason why we know that Donald Trump is a unique man is that all of us look at what he has suffered during his 4 years in office. He was constantly under attack. And then since then, of course, and still, and we see this lawfare and personal attack, just vicious personal attacks. We wonder, would we be able to withstand that, especially on the national stage, facing, after being president of the United States, facing a prison term? What, an orange jumpsuit with his two Secret Service guys? They want to take that away from him. We see the courage and the determination that he will not give up. That must scare them, but also shows us that, firstly, we have to be courageous, but we wonder if she were installed as president and Tim Walz and they start coming after us, will we continue to have that courage knowing they're going to drag us off or our kids or our friends, our husbands, wives to prison? That's a terrifying thought. And I'm
it
sure
is
in
terrifying.
China, that's what so many people were faced with, the terror of having their families destroyed or themselves.
And here, that raises another question. How can we resist? And people, this is also something I really want to point out. Don't count on your Second Amendment. If they take power, they will disarm the population, all of us. They will confiscate guns. That's exactly what the CCP did because in the, they don't want to armed population to resist their tyranny. So that is another thing, and they talk about it, didn't she? Talk about it, and Tim Walz talk about it, and she talk about this buyback program,
Mandatory buyback.
mandatory.
Mandatory.
Yeah,
Little word that might means a lot. Of course, she'll probably go back on that during the what little campaigning she's going to do. That was going to be my next question, guns, because
well,
pack the court. That's the one institution of government that they don't fully own yet, and destroy the filibuster. I'm sure that's there.
yeah,
Elon Musk. Um, They
Oh,
will,
Elon Musk probably is among the first to go. They
right.
will find whatever. And also, I want to tell people, and the kind of a hatred for Trump was not foreign to me, not at all. That's what the Chinese government did, or Mao especially did, and to demonize their opponents, and also demonize a category of people. So here, Trump was the threat, the threat to our democracy, and that's why when he was shot, so many people re- uh, feels bad that he was not killed. The hatred is that deep, and then they hate a category of people, not just one individual. That is MAGA, right? MAGA are the enemy of the state. And here I have to tell you what happened during the Cultural Revolution. The Cultural Revolution, Mao had one really, really specific opponent he wanted to get rid of. And he was the president of China. And Liu Shaoqi, he was considered the arch enemy by Mao, and he was supposedly successor for Mao. So, um, and Liu Shaoqi was really respected by a lot of Chinese because his focus was on economy, and Mao's focus was on class struggle. So he has to demonize Liu. And I remember as a little girl, and I hate him so much. I absolutely hate Liu, and because we were told he was a traitor, and he was the worst enemy for our country. And there was also cartoon, and I just hate him as a little girl, just like the people now hate Trump. I don't know why. And ask a lot of people why you hate Trump. They can't tell you. They just hate Trump. Same thing. And also, they hate MAGA, just like the Red Guards, the young people that hate their teachers and the principals so much they're willing to kill them.
Hmm.
So the day before, they were their teachers and professors. And then the next day, they were willing to go and beat and torture and kill their teachers. Why? Because that class of people were demonized by Mao as the enemy. When they become enemy, anything done to them is justified, just like here. That's why I keep saying history is repeating.
And in our schools and institutions of higher learning, we can see that for decades, it's the long march through the institutions. They have captured the press, of course, long, long, long ago. Elementary education, high school, higher
Kindergarten,
education, um, the military,
yes.
which is, there's so many. By the way, there are good people in all these institutions, but they've
Mhm.
captured the deep state, the intelligence agencies, Homeland Security, all of that, all of Washington, and of course, entertainment. They've got it
Yeah,
all, and they're even making massive inroads. And they actually say that this is what they were going to do, making massive inroads into the church.
absolutely.
And so when they have all of these institutions, there's almost, except, and I'm going to mention the exception in just a minute, there's a blackout of the history of socialism, of communism, Marxism, Leninism, Stalinism, all the isms, Maoisms, all of these things. When you ask a young person, when you ask somebody who is, whether they're 16 or 23 or whatever, even 40-year-olds, they have no idea the tragedy, the horror. I mean, they don't own the black book of communism, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
see those
yeah,
pictures. And they don't have like the rape of Nanking, which is different, but it's totalitarianism. These are the stories that terrify you and inoculate you against ever wanting that in your country.
yes,
Plus,
yes.
like pattern recognition, I would say, is that we know what a cucumber is, we know what a chair is, we know what a baby is, these things because we recognize their characteristics. Except for women now, we don't know that. But if but if we don't know what the characteristics of our brilliant society, our foundational documents, the principles upon which our
Yes.
constitutional republic stands, and the brilliance and the benevolence of the founding fathers, that whole era. And if we then don't know what socialism is, totalitarianism, and all its various flavors, if we can't distinguish, how do we see that's coming or reject? No, we're not going to go there because that's in the bad category. But
Mhm.
that's where we are in society, right?
Absolutely. I would say there are two things that are crucial for people to be able to, as you said, identify patterns and identify falsehood from truth. One is um, moral foundation. In this country, it's Christianity, because this country was founded on the principle of Christianity, and that has been destroyed. And nowadays, and I talk to people all the time, and I get interviewed, and I ask them, um, they say more than probably 90% of the churches have been captured, and now they become woke. Yeah. So when that's gone, how do you judge? You judge because you have some moral uh, guidance, right? Yeah. If when that is lost, you can't judge. You can't judge. You can't tell the truth from the lie. The other thing is history. And if you don't know history, you absolutely have no reference point. One is moral guidance, another is reference point. When you don't have reference point, you don't know that the same thing, the same lie, had been used before and and had a result, mostly tragic result. So that's why it's so important. That's why it took me forever to understand what Kamala trying to say. Imagine what can be, unburdened by what has been.
Unburdened by what has been.
What has been is the past. What has been is the knowledge, is the history, is the heritage, is the tradition. When that's been wiped out, and then you'll believe anything. You just go forward with her and jump off the cliff because you can tell what is good, what is bad, what is good, and what is evil.
For instance, if you take any of the things that you just mentioned, gun confiscation for one, if you do not understand that I have a book somewhere in this library, and I'm trying to remember what it's called, but what he explained was, I think he called it democide, and this was mass killing by the state, murder by the state,
Mm.
and what always preceded it was confiscation of guns.
Yes. Mhm.
Always. So Nazi
Always.
Germany, well, you can go through any society,
Yeah,
every
every
single
one of them.
Rwanda, Rwanda.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little
Or
bit
probably
about
Iran. Yeah.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
there is something that is determinative. When you own guns, I have many guns around me in my home, everywhere. There are more guns in America than there are people.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Yes.
And the thing is that that is, I don't see at this point any kind of war happening, but
Mhm.
they do know that when people can't defend themselves against, like when the children, the Red Guard were out killing people. Well,
Mhm.
if we had a Red Guard, which would be a Blue Guard here, but if we had a Blue
Yeah.
Guard and they were coming to kill me, I would
Mhm.
just kill them all, right? I
Mhm.
couldn't
Yeah.
withstand the military surrounding my house, but I
Mhm.
certainly could take out any little brats wanting to,
Mhm.
put me through a struggle session and then beat me to death.
Mhm.
That I could stop. So they need to disarm us. But
Yes.
for a lot of people that don't know about this confiscation of guns history, which is universal, it is universal and goes back for hundreds of years, then how would they know that when they're passing laws to confiscate guns, they wouldn't say, "Oh, wait a minute, in Nazi Germany, in communist China, in Rwanda, and all these other places, that's what they did just before this horrible genocide or revolution took place. They first confiscated guns, but they don't know that, so they
You
don't see
don't
the
know.
sign."
Yes. Yeah. So that's what I mean. History is just absolutely so important. And that's why they don't teach American people of the history. They especially don't teach the children. So they grew up generations by now, since let's just say 60s, and go further back. They just don't know real history. And that's why they want to use every shooting as another excuse to take our guns away. And you know what? We will continue to have a lot of shootings because someone want to use them as an excuse to disarm us.
Yeah, I think that that is gonna be one of the first things that she moves on, don't you?
They should be one of the first, absolutely. And a lot of people, we have a this much I can say. Second Amendment is not a guarantee of freedom, right? It just gives us another way to defend our freedom. So people need to vote so we make sure that the communists and the socialists don't get into power. By the time we vote them into power, and then you deal with them, the mandatory gun confiscation, that will be a little kind of late. What we need to do, the gun is not a guarantee.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
None
So
of it
that's
is a
what a lot of
guarantee.
people say. We don't worry that we have guns. No,
No,
you
no, no.
worry. You make sure you vote so that we keep the communists out of power, any level, not just White House, any level.
Yeah, I think that you're right. You bring up the vote, which is obviously what this is all about, these interviews that I'm doing. I want people to recognize that before they go to vote, whether it's mail-in ballots or on November 5th in person, that there is an existential threat to America. And we as Americans have that psychosis of it can't happen hereism. This is America. But we also have this idea, well, Kamala Harris, I mean, she's a Democrat. She's not a communist. She wouldn't kill me. You're a conspiracy theorist. No, it's like if we know somebody, if they're American, speak English, don't look like Nazis or something, we just can't conceive of anybody being that mean or horrible or to that degree that they would actually overturn our country. But you're here to say that, yeah, yeah,
I I know. That's why I work so hard. I quit my job in 2020, and so I can devote my time to the book, but also to the mission of educating Americans and save America. So I'm here to tell you, yes, and um, they can be communists, and communists do not have a certain look like a devil. Okay, so that's the same thing happened in China. Mao, why he got so much support? Because he told everyone, "We're going to bring you free land. We're going to bring you equity. We're going to have it together. Build a perfect future for the Chinese people." And then what happened? 80 million people died in his hands. And people also say, I want people in power that look like me. Now they just go crazy about Kamala because she's
because of
supposedly
skin color.
skin color and she's a woman. And I kept reminding people, when I was in China, the leader that killed 80 million of the Chinese people look like him.
Mm,
Yeah,
mhm.
and and Mao and the rest of the Chinese, we look alike. We speak the same language. We are the same people. It doesn't matter why they can be so evil. That's another question. Power. That's what's driven them. That's what really drives them. Power. For power, they can do anything. And also, I just really want to remind people, especially in here in America, and Kamala is not a person by her on her own. It is she really is part of the machine, and that machine it can really the people that in the front can be replaced. They're interchangeable. They're the same. Whoever was put there was proven by the machine. So we're not, I think we should not really focus too much on her as a person, but the force behind her.
She's part of
That's
the
what's
regime.
terrifying.
She's part of the regime
Yes,
of the
she is.
deep state. And
Yes.
that's a really good point that you're making. And when you talk about being replaced, it's almost, I think it's ubiquitous that in every one of these revolutions, and the founding fathers, by the way, hated calling the War of Independence the Revolutionary War. They hated that because what they said was, we didn't, we were preserving law and order and constitutional government. We weren't fomenting a revolution. My goodness, that was horrifying to them. I have a book somewhere back here. It's amazing that goes through that. So all of these revolutions, many of the people that were part of the revolution were later eliminated. And in China, for instance, you had the president that you were just speaking of, but you had the Red Guard where these young kids, Mao had 17 years of indoctrination in the school systems. This we should come back to the school
Mhm.
system indoctrination, the family, what will happen to that, was all their technique in America. But they had 17 years to indoctrinate all of these students, some of which were still in school and some had graduated out of, I guess, high school. And then he set them free, like, I don't know, tens and tens of millions of teenagers and young, super young adults. And they sort of defunded the police. There was no more police force. The Red Guard was the police force, and they could do anything that because
They
they
can do
had the
anything.
authority of Mao. And we look at this and we say, well, this is happening right here, that youth are being indoctrinated and they are being given this idea that they have the right, and they're violent. Their ideas are very, very violent. And there's a lot of resentment and a lot of envy, greed, and like, how dare you resist what I know to be true? There's only one way. And taking a young mind and inculcating it with uh, a dogma like communism, socialism, which
Mhm.
is really just, same thing, is very, very dangerous. And I think that that state machine, I was actually leading up to, and I got diverged by 12 other things in my mind. Um, weren't there, what, when they reached a certain point or, milestone, didn't Mao basically replace the Red Guard? They thought that they would be part of the future governance and power structure of the state, but then they were just replaced instead. So Kamala could be replaced. Tim Walz can be replaced. It doesn't matter. It's the machine. It's the deep state that's behind it.
You raised two good questions. I want to answer the first one because you mentioned about um, the American Revolution. I I really think we should call it War of Independence. And it is not a revolution in the sense that we understand this word. French Revolution is a revolution. Russian Revolution was a revolution. So was Chinese Communist Party revolution. What is the difference? The difference is a revolution want to change a existing social order. They want to really uproot everything and basically destroy the past and build something brand new and build brand something really social order. That's why we can absolutely call the woke a revolution. It not only want to destroy our past by destroying the statues, the history, and rename everything. And next week, I'm going to a hearing in Loudoun County that they want to rename a middle school, and I can't even remember the name of that middle school. The last one is France. This woman did a lot for the education in Loudon, but somehow they found that she belonged to the Daughters of Confederacy, and now they want to get rid of her name. That is what happened in the Cultural Revolution. And but the woke revolution in America is even worse. They don't. They are not only challenging the past, the tradition. They also challenge the normalcy, the norm that is part of the human history since the very beginning. They're going to change the very um, and the very reality. What is a woman and what is a man? And that is absolutely a revolution to overthrow everything. To basically, it's a revolution that turned our world upside down. So I think that's important to understand that. Also, what happened to the Red Guards? Well, they were the useful idiots when they took the power from Mao, and they absolutely believed that they will have a seat at the table. Now, this is something that the left. We want diversity, so everyone have a seat at the table. No, you won't have a seat at the table. You are just like the Red Guards. You are the useful idiots. So what happened? So the Red Guards was seriously thinking they will be given power. They start to fight each other and turn it into a civil war, killing each other because they were fighting for power. And what happened? Mao summoned the leaders and say, "You disappoint me. You need more education. You need to be sent to the countryside, sent to the gulags to get your re-education." So just like that, they're all sent to the gulags. And I became one of them later and sent to the countryside and worked in the field for 3 years to get my so-called education. And I mentioned the president of China, Liu Shaoqi. He was number two figure in the machine. It's not even safe for him. Communism will destroy everybody, including communists. The fact is that communists killed more communists than any other ists.
You know, I laugh because, well, there's a couple of reasons that I laugh. One, it's so dark, it's so evil, it's so demonic and satanic. This what is has been moving over America, this dark and terrifying time. Lives have been destroyed. Not and I mean, just if I start listing, it's ridiculous. Everybody knows how many lives have been destroyed, whether, they've actually been killed because of this kind of an ideology, or humiliated, crushed, thrown into despair, whether they've lost family members, been thrown out of their business, or canceled. There's so many ways that people's lives have been destroyed and humiliated, just your reputation destroyed. So I laugh, even just in spite of that, because it's so dark, it's so evil that one, we could all descend into despair, and that would not be a good thing. Number one. Number two, there is a God, and there is a commandment to hope and be strong and of a good courage. I always quote Deuteronomy on that when God is speaking to Joshua, because he's like, you're going to go into this land and you're going to have to fight. Be strong and of a good courage. It was a command. Not like, I really want you to be strong and I know it's hard. It's just be strong enough of good courage. And then we're commanded to love, we're commanded to hope and have faith and all these things. So just to be obedient, we have to. And that's a good, that gives us the strength to keep moving on when sometimes you just read your feed in X or you go to, news and you watch and you read and you just think, my mother's 89. She says to me, Elizabeth, sometimes she'll say, I'm so glad I'm 89. I'm not going to be here when it gets really bad. But we have to have hope. But at the same time, I don't, when I chuckle at things like that, I want to pause. That's the reason I said all that. I want to pause and say the human toll that is so vast, is so sweeping, and you can't take it back. When you slaughter 80 million people, you can't go back. If Kamala Harris and Tim Walz take office, you can't go back because they will harden our institutions and prevent
Yeah,
any other. The court will have 16 members on it. They'll be term limited out. They'll be impeached whenever they don't, you know, salute and give the right thing. We will not have a free election. And so this is something to fear. It is
mhm,
like the terror of the French Revolution that we're
absolutely.
facing.
Yeah. And this is something I try to remind people, and people say, it can't be that bad. Well, let's just say 15 years ago. And I remember because I was in my former workplace and I witnessed all this. And it's just say 15 years ago, and you say something that is not quite politically correct, you might get kind of a call out, and you might be uh, got ostracized. And then just a few years later, you may lose your job. And it progresses very fast. And now today, if you say something, you may just get jailed. And the next step, you may just lose your life. That happened over and over again under communism.
This is very serious. And
Yes,
you brought up vote. I want to bring that up again because the reality is this. I read or heard 47% of Christians are not registered to vote. I think that number's right. It's huge. It's almost half of
awful. Yeah.
or registered did not vote. And um, in communist China, nobody had the option to vote Mao
Mhm.
out.
Yeah.
We will soon be faced with that no option. And this is the last free election if MAGA does not win. And what I would say, well, what I ask you, what do you tell your friends? What would you tell the audience that's listening to this about registering to vote, getting others registered to vote, getting out and voting, doing whatever you do, being a poll watcher, whatever it takes? Why is this so necessary? Is there a moral obligation?
Absolutely. And I have to really remind those Christians. And a lot of them somehow believe that they are above politics. They're just Christians. They don't believe um, getting into politics. Well, then if you don't believe that, get ready. Get ready. And later, they will be after you. They always go after Christians, and that's exactly what happened to China. And I was just reading some historical materials today. And so the Chinese Communist Party was founded in 1921. The very first thing, they were very small. They only have like no more than hundreds of members back then. Guess what? The first thing they did, the very first thing they did in 1922 was launching this anti-Christian movement. They went after churches, went after missionaries in China. They went after Christians because communism always considered Christianity the number one threat to them. And today, if you are a Christian in China, you have two options. You can go to the state-owned Christian churches, and you go to church. Above the cross, there will be Xi Jinping portrait, and or you go underground. And if you go underground, and just be prepared. Once you're found out, you might just be jailed. And that's what happened to Christians under communism. So Christians, you have to wake up. If you want to keep your faith, if you want to have the freedom to worship, you have to vote, and make sure you don't vote for communists.
Mm-hmm. When you bring up the freedom to worship, the First Amendment says the free exercise of religion. And I remember pondering this, and of course I've read so many different things. And the reality is that Kamala is truncating, and all the Democrats and liberals, leftists, Marxists, socialists, whatever, truncate now the First Amendment reference to religion and make it a freedom to worship rather than the free exercise of religion, because the free exercise of religion means I have the right to raise my kid. I mean, in my religion says I'm the boss, my husband's the boss,
Mm-hmm.
and the government has nothing to do with us unless I'm actually physically or destroying my children. It goes into my work ethics. It goes into my voting. It goes into it. It encompasses everything that I am. It's weaved into all aspects of society. If it's just freedom of worship, which Kamala keeps mentioning, freedom of worship, freedom of worship, freedom of worship. Really? So that means we have the right to prayer and sing nice songs in church on Sunday or synagogue on Shabbat. But it's more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, I also have to remind people that Marxism, communism is a religion.
Yeah.
It claims itself as atheists. They're not. They are religious. They are religious. And the communism is absolutely a religion, promising the heaven, which is communist utopia. So when the Marxists kicked Christianity out of school in the name of separation of state and religion, they replaced it with their own religion, that is communism and Marxism. And DEI, they taught critical race theory. It is all communist religious teaching. So people have to understand, they want to kick Christianity out, but they want to replace it. And notice the young people, they brainwashed. They're thinking that Christianity is old fashioned, but they are believers of a new religion that is Marxism.
Right. Idolatry. Idolatry goes back as far as Judeo-Christianity. It seems that communists, Marxists at all, what they do is they want to remove anything in society that um, makes man independent,
Yes.
self-confident, allows them the freedom to express their ideas, to build, because that becomes powerful. Look at Elon Musk, right? He's nothing other than the fact that he's brilliant and creative and look what he's accomplished in his life. That's dangerous. That is very dangerous. The family is what supports everything that we are. It's our refuge. It builds, it teaches us, um, the values upon which, uh, well, our parents, but this nation was built, Judeo-Christian values. And so all of these institutions, they first eliminate and then they replace it with a perverted, dystopian, hideous, disgusting, fake, replacement. And so instead of butter, you got margarine, but margarine kills you, right? So with the family, Marxism demands the abolition of, yes, property. That's hugely serious. People don't always understand how serious that is, and the abolition of the family. And I would like you to speak to this question. Americans sometimes will look at what happened in Nazi Germany, which was National Socialism, um, in the Soviet Union, Russia, Soviet Union, China, communist China, and they'll say, "Oh, that can't happen here because there's a different culture, different things, the process or the timeline or the order of events was different, right? So it's like that, well, that's not going to happen here because. So doesn't communism, like any ideology, um, amend itself or alter itself, adjust for the particular challenge or culture that's before them? So in America, we have an entirely different history than the Chinese pre-communism, than the Russians pre-Soviet Union, and the Germans, pre-Nazi socialism, National Socialism. So they don't recognize it, but don't they adjust it? So we today have a constitution, the Declaration of Independence, hundreds of years of this kind of government of the people who are sovereign, rule of law. So they have to be more subtle here because we have stronger institutions to perhaps, I could be wrong about this, that would protect us. So that's why we think it'll never happen in America because we've got the Constitution, right? So don't the communist socialists here need to message or brand themselves and go about their actual takeover in a different way? Tell me about that.
Absolutely. Marxism, yeah, absolutely. Marxism has to morph itself to suit a particular time, a particular country, and a particular culture. And so, what happened in Russia? Because Russia and China back then, in a way, similar because they're all backward. They're backward and poor country, even though Russia was a little bit more industrialized than China. So class struggle worked on both in both countries. But in America, we have a strong middle class, we have a thriving economy and prosperity, unprecedented prosperity, and what are you going to do if you want to bring it down? You have to adapt. And what's the weakest link? Race relation. Yeah. So now they morph itself into race Marxism, but that's not enough. It is just not enough because Black American 13% of the population, and it's still not enough. So they have to go on, and so now sexuality and sex between women and men, trans and the gay and the straight, they go and now they expand it to beyond recognition. Now being fat, you make you oppressed. Okay, so they go against
It's the
norms.
intersectionality you're talking about. So
Exactly.
what they did, which is, as this all this happening, I'm like, what is going on? One of my oldest daughters was saying to me, she has several kids, and she was saying, "Mom, this is happening with my friends. Some people won't speak to me anymore because," and I'm listening to this story she's telling me several years ago. And I said, "Come on. This isn't really happening with friends. Like if you won't go out to march, they won't speak to you anymore and they'll unfriend you on social media. I mean, this can't be happening." I was doing the very thing I'm laughing at, but it was girlfriends and neighbors. And so, um, yeah, I can't even remember where I was going with that. Sorry.
I mean, it is like now is a profession can be a part of intersectionality. If you're
Oh
part
yeah,
of
the
the police,
internet's, yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
now
you're bank,
to get
right?
it big enough, it's got to be fat people, especially women,
Hmm.
and if you have any kind of mental or emotional problem, which everybody does now, then that's
Hmm.
it. Your pronouns, your transgenderism, your
Yes.
sexuality, your race, um, like Pacific Islanders must be an oppressed class. Everyone, and Muslims. and atheists. And so the intersectionality is that we're all, it's like a network, a web of
Yes.
they're totally dissimilar. They have nothing to do with each other to a great
But they're
degree,
all
but
put
they're
under one umbrella, oppressed,
victims
right?
oppressing.
The
Right.
victims of oppressed.
Exactly.
It's not that hard. You can just say now, if the Marxism, it's actually already happening in India, what would be the best way to divide the Indians? Religion, right? Religion, because there are just like any religion under the sun you can find in India. So Marxism adapts and morphed into whatever. But if you understand the essence of it, you can recognize whatever it appeals. And the new faces put on, you can recognize it because it's always about division. Because it's the goal is to have a revolution, to overthrow the current system. And if you have a revolution, you have to have enemies, and you have to have people fighting each other. How do you do that? You divide them. How do you divide them? Hey, that
Pick
is the
your
key.
choice,
How do you
take
divide?
your pick. So it's about chaos. It's about
Yes.
anarchy because from anarchy, the strong man or the strong state has to step in and take over. So we have in America and in other places, but in America, we have this liberty and is baked into our culture, our traditions, our history, our law system. And in order to burn that to the ground, so all that's left is ashes. So it won't even, you can't even rebuild that same thing because it's gone. Um, they have to destroy it. And the chaos and the anarchy, like burning cities, like
Mhm.
making people kneel down and ask forgiveness for being a racist, which they the day before didn't know they were, and destroy the churches, destroy the schools, destroy the children. Hey, cut off their private parts, destroy sexuality, destroy the family. Once you do that, you can do anything. Well, you brought it to chaos. Now the strong man or strong woman, Kamala, has to step in, whether it's the military, whether it's with the Department of Justice, however, and capture those who are in rebellion, like you and me,
Yeah.
and then we have to rebuild because you know what? Look at our society. It's so fractured. We need to
Yes. So
rebuild. We need to build back better.
yeah, exactly. That's what most burn everything to the ground and build back his way.
So will
It's never better.
Kamala's going to what you're predicting is that the courts, of course, the Supreme Court, confiscation of guns and other
Suppression of speech.
suppression of free speech. Those are the top 3, aren't they? Or what else?
And also, they will make an example of those who dare to oppose them. And of course, Donald Trump, Elon Musk will be on the top, Tucker Carlson, and we will be on the list as well. And then people say, okay, I
Good
better
company,
not
but
speak up.
still, I'd rather not go
Yeah.
there.
But I'm just saying that in that is their plan. And people ask me, do I have any hope? Um, it's very dire, the situation, there's no question about it. But I do think I just can't say enough how brilliant our founding fathers were. We still have a chance, and that is the states. And so if we lose, we still have a chance. The states, yeah. So that's why the power has to be separated. The power cannot be concentrated in one place. So that's why voting is so important. Not just presidential election, local election, school board, local council, and all that is important to take. And also, I have to tell everyone, even we win, work is just beginning. We have to do the same. We have to get back our school, get back our city, get back our states. we have a lot of work to do because we were asleep for too long.
Oh gosh, that is a beautiful way to put it. And to also add a ray of sunshine or a little bit of hope there, I think that a lot of us believe that we are living in very exciting times. We are
Yes,
living at a crossroad in history.
yes,
And, that's happened many times in history. I don't know if everybody always knew when it was happening. Now communication is such that, I can't go 5 minutes without knowing three other catastrophic or weird things have happened today. So we're living in a great time. We're living at a historic
yes.
time, an historic moment. We're living where with Esther, when when Mordecai said to her, if not, gosh, I'm not going to quote a time such as this that you were
Yeah, a
born,
time
or
such as that. Yes.
exactly, ah,
Mhm.
that this is your time, and that we can stand up, and you can, when you're on your deathbed, you can look back and you can say, I did nothing. I did nothing, or I fought the good fight.
Yes.
I was that soldier that Paul speaks of, and I fought for truth, and which is uppermost. Truth will set us free and keep us free, keep us free. And we can, if we can do little things, we can pray, but we can go to the polls. We can help at the polls. We register. I'm going to have hopefully Tucker Carlson on because I want him to, not Tucker, Charlie Kirk, not
Mhm.
quite the same, Charlie Kirk, to
Mhm.
get on about registering people to vote.
Yes.
Because I thought
Yes.
I'm going to take a plastic table out in front of a grocery store, the DMV, and start registering to people to vote because I feel guilty that I haven't done that. And he keeps saying,
Yes.
you've got to register to people to vote. Have
Yes.
you done
Yes.
anything like that yet?
I am the precinct captain for the Loudoun County Republican Committee. So
Oh,
I have
wonderful.
been, yeah, and I have been involved, and and I tell people to get involved. There's so many things to do, and I will go, as I said, to a hearing in the middle school about the name change, and I've been to the school board meetings. I want to get involved, and I want people to get involved at a local level. Everything matters now.
I am part of those people that forget how important the local level is.
Mhm.
I'll get so distracted by the big pictures, these big events, these, existential things that if they pass this bill or this happens, but I have become such a believer in the local level.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to run for office. That will not happen, but I want to help on that local level. So
Yeah, that's
let's
another thing. There's so many things you can do. Support the candidates. If you don't have time, support them with money. If you have time, volunteer. And that's what we need to do. And going back to what you said, I think it is my privilege to live in a time such